All right. I am so excited to be joined here by my friend, Anthony Sharett. Anthony, as we said, is the president at Pathward. And we met several years ago at Money 2020, actually, rejoined and caught up a little bit at this year's event, which was wonderful. And so I'm so happy to welcome him in and onto Travillian Next. Hi, Anthony. How are you today?
Hi, Amber. It's good to see you, and I'm just so glad that we can do this here today. And you're right, Money 2020 is the cast of thousands, but we had a chance to catch up, and it's just great to be back with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have such an interesting background and an interesting path to leadership where you're at now. You were a law firm partner, so like me, the recovered attorney a little bit, but also were the president at Nationwide Pet. You've led a major bank transition, and now you're the president at Pathward, of course. So how is your background not being like 100% all-time banker? How do you think that that shapes your background and your approach to talent and leadership today?
Well, you're right, Amber. My background has, in many ways, been a squiggly line, but the one of the things that's really been constant has been sort of just I just really enjoy being in a relationship with people. Number one, number two. Certainly, I've had over 20 years in the financial services space. I think my first real job out of law school, I was a bank examiner in the state of Ohio, and regulated the banking industry with the Ohio Department of Commerce. Just had some really great mentors there that were fantastic and really learned a lot about risk and compliance and business development, being able to examine some of the largest banks in the state of Ohio. And, on from there, when I had a mentor who told me, he said, look, Anthony, you could stay here and for the rest of your career, but it's probably time for you to maybe get into private practice and see if you can leverage, some of the things that you learned here as a bank examiner in private practice and perhaps even, build a career around financial services. And so that's what I did. It was great. And from there, went on to, as you noted, to go into private practice. I was a partner at two different law firms. And then, for a couple of reasons, decided to go in-house, which was a great move for me.
It's so great to hear about that compliance background because compliance and risk is something that I think more today now than ever, particularly with technology. That is something that as a leader, you have to have a really strong, I think, root and base understanding of risk and compliance. And so definitely a unique and useful background. And we're going to get more into, as we talk, a little bit more about, non-traditional paths through banking and what you look for in hiring. But before we do that, I want to learn a little bit more about Pathward. So Pathward is a really unique, very tech forward, I would say, institution. And you're also performing really well as a team. So Pathward just earned its third consecutive Great Place to Work certification, the GPTW, as we say. But you guys had 84% of employees that participated in that survey said that Pathward is a great place to work. And that is 27% points above the average US company. So what's one specific thing that you think y'all do that drive those numbers?
Well, gosh, I think for us, it has to start with our purpose of powering financial inclusion for all and financial access. There's over five or 6,000 banks in the United States. And, for us, we wanted to be unique. And one of the things that really stands out for us is our purpose. And so, when people come to work every day at Pathward, we have a lot of important things we're trying to do. We're a public bank, so we've got to, make sure we're minding shareholder value and return. But, perhaps even more important, we've got to make sure that our employees feel proud about where they work. And because of our purpose of trying to reach the unbanked, the underbanked, the underserved, small and mid-sized businesses who may be left behind by some of the more traditional banks, I think it all starts right there with our purpose. I think number two, it's got to be our culture. We can have the best strategy in the world, but if we don't have the right culture, it's probably going to be very difficult for us to be successful. And so when we hire employees here at Pathward, one of the first things we talk to them about is how important both our purpose is, and then really at the outset, then secondarily our culture and what that means, whether it's our operating norms, our values, or the behaviors that we want to see in employees that we hire.
Is there anything else that kind of reinforces that discussion on, your norms as an organization? Because sometimes culture can be a little squishy.
It is. I mean, number one, we try to walk the talk. And so, most companies have values and some have operating norms and some have hiring behaviors. But, for the most part, our employees do the selling for talent for us. And, there's no better salesperson to work work at Pathward than the employees that we have. And what does that mean? We want people to bring themselves to work. We actually encourage that. Number two, we want people with diverse backgrounds and work experiences. For us, we have found that makes us a better company. Three, we want people to know that there will be opportunities for professional development and advancement to the extent that that's what the employee, really wants to do. But I think perhaps most importantly, Amber, is we want to create space for people to have a seat at the table where their voices are both valued and heard. And that's whether you are perhaps someone who's right out of college all the way up to our most senior employees. We want everyone to have a voice and have a seat at the table and to be heard, because that's really how innovation gets done, and that also creates sort of the types of engagement scores that you see here at Pathward.
That's wonderful. And we're definitely going to talk more about how feeling heard and valued can drive innovation. I do want to loop back around because I love talking about your mission there at Pathward of inclusion and driving using innovation to drive financial inclusion. Let's get into this because being a tech forward bank, you kind of have a different skill set of what you need sometimes than a typical kind of bread and butter just bank that is not doing all of these tech forward initiatives. So I want to talk to you about the skills gap that we have in the industry as a whole. So industry research shows that banks face a projected 350,000 worker shortfall in digital and tech skills specifically by this year. So when you're hiring at innovation roles at Pathward, what skills are you looking for, Anthony? And has that list changed a lot in even the last couple of years?
Great question, Amber. I think number one, we want employees that are going to be curious, right? The skill set of curiosity, it seems sort of commonplace or typical, but it really isn't. We want employees that are going to be inquisitive. They're going to maybe ask why three times, because old mentor of mine said, if you ask why three times, that's when you'll finally get the answer. That's what we want from our employees. The other thing is we don't necessarily think about, gosh, we do think about products and services and capabilities we want to sponsor with our fintech partners. That's important. But really what our fintech partners, our employees at Pathward, and really what we're asking is what problem do we need to solve? What problem are we solving in the marketplace that needs to be resolved either today and solved tomorrow? And the curiosity mindset is really important when you're trying to solve problems in the marketplace or mind a gap that's there to meet a consumer need or a small or mid-sized business need. So number one, we want people that are curious. Two, we want people that are going to bring a solutions-oriented mindset. I say that issue spotting is for novices, problem solving is really for the experts, and we
Which
want
is
people.
funny because as lawyers, we're trained in problem spotting.
Yeah, we are. Issue spotting is important, but that's really only one side of the coin. We've got to have people that are going to bring solutions to the table. That's really important. Three, we've got to have people that are agile and nimble. The ability to pivot. It's okay. If you're in a co-creation environment like we are, we love to co-create with our fintech partners who are trying to grow and scale, because that's what we want to be. We want to be the trusted platform that helps our fintech partners grow and scale. And if we're going to do that, we've got to have employees that are going to be willing to pivot and be okay it's okay to fail. Like we hear a lot of employees talk about, we want to fail fast. A lot of companies talk about failing fast. And certainly we want to create an environment and create a workspace where people feel comfortable with that and actually in many ways celebrate that. Because if you celebrate that, that's going to create a space for people to want to innovate, co-create with our partners, and want to move technology and move some of these products and services to mine these gaps that we know exist in the banking ecosystem. At Pathward, we really do three things. We collect deposits, we move money, and we lend money. But there's lots of gaps that we can be minding with our fintech partners. And so hiring people that are able to pivot, be nimble, be agile, that's really important.
Yeah, and those values, being curious, being solutions oriented, being agile, and being willing to fail fast, those all sound like tech company values, right? But I do want to ask too specifically, what skills are you hiring for? And are you finding what you need in the market? Are you finding it difficult to place some of these more digital forward, perhaps, roles? Is it APIs? Is it cybersecurity? Like, what is it that a tech forward bank is really on the hunt for right now?
Well, for us, I mean, we do have a sort of a standard that we want to meet. So we do need subject matter experts in the core areas for Pathward. So we need subject matter experts in payments, and we need subject matter experts around acquiring and money movement, things like that. We need expertise around things with our marketplace consumer lending portfolio. We need experts in our tax business, so people who really understand that. Obviously, we need experts in our technology space. So, things around sort of data, architecture, AI, all very important. So, we do hire people that are subject matter experts. There's no doubt. But in addition to that, we hire people that want to skate where the hockey puck is going. So as we think about things like AI, the use cases around that are ubiquitous, whether it's, how to make the company more effective or more efficient, that's important. AI is being used as a business development tool, which is great. AI is being used in marketing and enterprise and brand marketing initiatives. So we're looking to hire people that have a capability around that area. Certainly, we're hiring people with skill sets around strategy and problem solving. That's a skill set that we continue to hire for. And then, of course, risk and compliance, right? Recently we've enhanced our first line of defense risk and compliance teams that are now embedded in the business that partner with our second line risk and compliance team, which has done a fantastic job over the years. And so we want people that can really do two things in our first line risk capability. That is protect the bank, but also enable growth, co-creation, and revenue. And that's a really unique skill set in the marketplace today. So we are on the hunt and continue to hire and promote from within as well. And I think that's really important too. As we think about our strategy here at Pathward, and that's to be the trusted platform to help our partners grow and thrive. It's got to be a combination of training our current employees and promoting from within. That's really important as we think about continuity of our culture and talent, and certainly incentivizing doing a great job. And also, at times, we'll need to go outside the four corners of Pathward to bring in talented people who may have a skill set that's unique that we may not possess today. So it's a both and approach that we use.
Absolutely. And so I guess the question really boils down to, is it easier to hire maybe a compliance minded banker and train them to, take some risks and be on this innovation side? Or is it easier to hire someone that has maybe the subject matter expertise in something like AI or cyber and teach them kind of the rules of banking?
Well, it's a great question, and I think a very lawyerly answer. It depends, right?
Yeah.
We have set up, what smart banks are going to do is create guardrails, right? Create guardrails that foster innovation, right? And so, because we are in a highly regulated space, right? We're a public bank that's got with a national bank charter. We have to play within the guardrails. However, within that sort of that innovation sandbox created by these guardrails, there's a lot that we can do, right? And so, from that perspective, if we want to bring someone who may not necessarily have a risk and compliance background, but that may have an innovative track history, we absolutely can work with them because we've created the infrastructure, and we'll provide the card rails for them to, sort of play within and co-create within. Conversely, there are times that we'll need to hire someone or promote from within someone that has an expertise in risk and compliance, but that needs to be tailored to, our risk appetite, our risk tolerance, and also understanding the macro regulatory environment that because as we see, that shifts from one administration to the other. And so, that's ever changing as well. So we have to be nimble with that too.
Absolutely. And something that a lot of our clients, particularly community and regional banks, tell us a lot, Anthony, is that they can't compete with the compensation packages of these mega banks or big tech companies for that matter. Pathward uses a talent anywhere recruiting strategy. So can you tell us what that means and how it helps you compete for talent in this kind of ruthless landscape?
I can. I think what the data tells us when we work with our talented people and people in culture, and, by the way, just got to give a shout out to our people in culture culture team, particularly, our new-ish head of people and culture, my colleague, Anjana, who's done a great job as she's transitioned to Pathward. And, what the studies will show you is, number one, I don't think compensation is the number one why people go to work at a place or why they stay or even why they leave. I usually it's number three or four down the list. I think what the data would show is the reason why people, if they enjoy where they work or if they stay, at a place for a long time, it's number one is usually about the people. And they enjoy the people that they work with. Number two, it's typically about the overall culture of the organization. Three, it may be the product or service or capability that they're putting in the marketplace. And then compensation is usually somewhere right around there. And so recognizing that, we certainly have to pay competitively and, pay competitively within the market because we want people that are bright and capable and hungry and all those types of things. So we do that. But what we try to do is provide other things that are equally as important to many of our employees as important as compensation is. So certainly our talent anywhere approach that you reference has really helped us, right? Right now we know that, many industries, even outside of the financial services space that had a talent anywhere or sort of a hybrid approach are bringing their employees back to the office. And, frankly, for many of those companies, that's probably the right thing to do. But for us, post COVID, what we found is we were able to do a couple of things. We were still able to meet our strategy. We were still able to perform with a certain standard of excellence, and really importantly, because of our talent anywhere approach, we were able to hire employees that perhaps we may not have been able to hire if we did not have the talent anywhere approach that we have today. So, has it been a value add for us? It has. Has it been a differentiator for us? Maybe some of our peers who are bringing people back to the office, it has. Now, we do lots of things to, sort of that remote environment or talent anywhere approach. It's not foolproof. It's not perfect. Does it sometimes impact our ability to quickly solve problems that we may be able to solve if we were all in the same office? Maybe. But what we do is we create forms for that, whether that's online team meetings and we meet in person. The various teams around Pathward meet in person frequently. We bring leadership teams together. We bring in lots of outside speakers that are talking to us about the market and things like that. And we create space for problem solving because I think as we think about the talent anywhere approach, one of the biggest opportunities that perhaps companies that are still remote like us have, it's the ability to solve problems quickly. And so we've tried to incorporate some tools that allows us to do that.
Fully agree with what you guys are doing. I know that that's not worth much, but I will say I have had some of the most productive and collaborative teams personally working remotely. And there's data to bear out that your approach is working, Anthony, because the survey data from the Great Places to Work survey showed that 93% of Pathward employees say they feel welcome when they join the company. So it's not, I think that a lot of people get hung up on remote work as, oh, well, then you lose that togetherness. But this clearly shows, no, this is, again, a really high number of people that say that they feel welcome, which is a very hard feeling to create. So what happens in that first 90 days for employees that really helps them, particularly in the beginning, feel welcome? And because onboarding is where people lose a lot of folks. If that the first 3 months you're not gelling, it can spell trouble very quickly. So yeah, what does that first 90 days look like for a Pathward employee that makes them feel welcome?
Well, I think number one, despite the fact that we're remote, we do want leaders and managers of people that are hiring someone new to meet with them in person within the first 30 days of their hire. We do have offices located across the country where we traditionally had offices before we went to our current Talent Anywhere environment. So we really want new employees to meet with their team and their managers very quickly in person upon being hired. Two, most teams have periodic, at least quarterly, usually more so, in-person team meetings. So they'll be at those meetings as well. We have ERGs, which are great, our employee resource groups, which really helps. Introduce our ERGs to all new employees. They're optional, but we have a pretty good track record of participation. among our employees in our employee resource groups. We want to get them plugged in there. I think our training program has really matured over the last several years. And so just helping people learn about Pathward, what we do from the outside looking in, it could seem like we're a little more complicated and complex than we really are. And so I think our training program has been refined. Our executive leadership teams and our senior leaders, we are involved in some of the training programs that we have, and I think that's really important as well. And then most teams try to assign someone with a little bit of a buddy, right? Someone who can help them learn the ropes around our culture and expectations and our strategy and things like that. And so I think it's some of these things that are really helpful to help really people integrate into not only to Pathward, but into our culture.
Love that last one in particular, kind of having a buddy or someone that, is internal to the company who you can just ping and be like, "Hey, what do we usually do for Christmas break?" Or something like that. That's lovely. And, we have sponsors in all different facets of life that we come across. So,
Yeah, one
cultural.
other thing on that too, I've gotta talk a bit about our communications team as well, right? And so they do a really good job of providing a ton of information to, in collaboration with our people and culture team, to new employees, whether it's our intranet, which is, I think it's fantastic, the level of detail and information that we provide, on the intranet, whether it's, we have a monthly newsletter that comes out. Many leaders have their own sort of team newsletters that go out. So I think, with all of these resources that we are wrapping around our new employees, I think that's really helpful. Again, like, we're not perfect. We don't always get it right. I'm sure there's things that we can do better, but we do try to be thoughtful about the integration of new employees here at Pathward.
I love talking about communications because that is something that is actually an investment. And I think that a lot of, particularly, smaller banks, it can be hard to justify a lot of like HR or marketing or, kind of operational talent. But it does make such a big difference when people know what's going on in the organization. They feel like they have buy-in. And you mentioned it earlier, feeling valued and heard, it sounds like is very important at Pathward. So I just want to call out that, like, I'm glad that you mentioned that because it does take some real intentionality of building those resources, keeping up with them, committing. If you say you're going to do a newsletter every month, you do the newsletter every month. And that is hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, our most valuable asset at Pathward is our people. There's no doubt. It's not, are we proud of the process that we have to grow and scale fintechs? Of course we are. Are we proud of the fact that our risk and compliance framework has been a differentiator for us? We're certainly proud of that. Are we proud of the fact that, we've got great numbers around our engagement scores? That's great. But our most valuable asset at Pathward is our people, bar none. And so, because of that, just like you would invest in any other area of the business, whether that's, infrastructure or technology or security or marketing or anything else, we have to invest in our people because it is our most valuable asset.
Okay, before we go, I think the last question I want to wrap up with is your path, Anthony, at Pathward has been really interesting. I think you joined as a general counsel and then moved up to chief legal and compliance officer, and now you're president. That's really meaningful internal mobility. So what advice would you give to bank CEOs about developing their own internal talent pipeline versus maybe knowing when it's time to look outside and bring in outside talent? And certainly, like, anything that you can share about your own personal ability to grow within Pathward, I think would be a great place to kind of leave off.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been fortunate that I've been surrounded by just some great people that are, really good at what they do, subject matter experts. They're nice people. We try to, as we say, win with friends. And so I've been very fortunate, not only at my career here at Pathward, but throughout my career to be surrounded by some really great people. I think bank leadership, what they really can think about is look, if you hire the right people that understand the company culture, that want to do things the right way, that have the skill and expertise that you need, that have a curiosity mindset, people want to do the right thing and people want to be part of a winning team. And I think if as long as you create space for people to do that, I think it's pretty easy to promote people from within. I think the other piece is, setting some SMART goals, right? Hey, it's the same thing I do with folks on my team that are ambitious and hungry and that want to, move up and advance is, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about this. What is it exactly that you want to do? Or do you want to be an individual contributor at a high level? Do you want to be a people leader at a high level? Do you want to be a broad strategist, or do you want to be a sort of a discrete subject matter expert? Let's talk about that, because depending upon how that conversation goes, then we can put a strategy and a plan together to kind of talk about realistically and authentically what opportunities may be here for us to go ahead and accomplish that together, right? And that's the other thing. You can sometimes you can do things quickly, doing it alone, but as the old adage says, if you want to go far, you go together. And that's the other thing. So we kind of talk about that as well as we talk to employees that are hungry and that they have the not only the desire, but the ability to advance.
Awesome. What
Well,
is
no
a
problem.
skill or competency that you think will be essential for bank leaders in 2030 that maybe people aren't focused on yet?
Yeah, I think anyone who understands the nexus or the connection between the intersection of technology, go-to-market strategy and culture, I think that's what's really gonna carry the day. It's that intersection, and then I would throw product in as well. It's, a lot of companies tend to operationalize these areas sort of in a silo or, in a vertical, but it's the intersection between, sort of culture, technology, sort of product, and people, being able to tie all of those things together and have them working in concert and working in unison, that's really what's going to carry the day, or at least one of the things that could carry the day in the year of 2030, because everything is changing so rapidly and so quickly. And so being able to understand the connection or the interplay between all of that, I think that's what's going to be really, really important.
Love that intersectionality. Wonderful having you, Anthony. This was so helpful to me and enlightening and raised me up for the day. So I hope the same is true for all of our audience. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Amber. Thanks for having me.